Ryan Bolton here, local mortgage expert, ryanbolton.com. Today I want to do a recap of the year that was 2022. What a crazy year for interest rates, housing market, all those things. So I want to review the actual numbers that we saw in Washington County, Utah, southern Utah, and some of the mortgage rate trending data and stuff like that. So let's jump into interest rates. That was obviously a hot topic. Interest rates really moved a lot last year, more than I've ever seen in my career. We started the year on January 3rd at 3.29%. But by June 14th, rates had moved up to 6.28%, almost a full 3-point increase in just over 6 months. Just a very large increase in such a small window. Rates actually trended down a little bit to 5.13 on July 29th. But from that point on, rates basically steadily increased all the way up to the high point of 2022, which was Halloween, October 31st. 2022 rates hit 7.32%. From that point, we ended the year about 6.5%. So they definitely came off that high point. They've trended lower, which is why you've seen a little bit of an uptick in requests towards the end of the year. I checked some of the data that showed on mortgage applications, and refinances are down 85%. They just plummeted, obviously. Most people took advantage of rates in 2021, 2020. They got their rate into the threes, upper threes, maybe even the upper twos, depending on when they timed the refinance. But most people had a 3% rate, somewhere around 3%. So they didn't need to refi. Refinances just plummeted. I'm surprised that number's not higher. I mean, 85% drop is just about everything. I'm surprised that number's not 95%. I mean, my requests for refinances have just disappeared, just flat disappeared. We've seen home equity lines of credit really increase because people still have this equity they wanted to get to. So they would do a second mortgage, which we offer as well. You can go to my website at ryanbolton.com /HELOC, HELOC. And we have a great line of credit if you're looking to add a line of credit to your home or pull in some of that equity without refinancing your first mortgage if you have such a great rate. So refinances went down 85%. Purchases were down 36%. But we're trending up the last 2 months of the year, which is good news there that people were kind of looking during the holidays, maybe getting ready to buy the first quarter because inventory is up, so they have more to choose from. I can't tell you how many clients called me and were just frustrated with the market because it was such a strong seller's market. There was such limited inventory, and they were competing with so many other people. And a lot of people that were financing lost out because a cash buyer would come in and offer a lot more. And when you're financing it, you don't have, unless you have a lot more down payment, typically you need to appraise and buy it at sales price, not offer a lot more. So we saw that trend through most of 2022 where the price was set and people were just offering more. They had the money, they needed to move, they wanted to live here. Lots of reasons for that they saw the value in paying more for the home. So we saw a lot of that, and a lot of people were kind of pushed out of the market. Now that there's more inventory, even though rates are up, they have more selection, more of flexibility. You're starting to see some buyers get back into the market. So we have seen that tick up just a little bit, that there are people requesting mortgages again. Now, some other data I pulled the permits per city. It's a little trickier getting this data because it's not a county thing where you can't just pull the county data. You have to pull each city. So there's 3 major cities in Washington County. You've got St. George, Utah, Washington, Utah, and Hurricane, Utah. It's spelled like hurricane, but it's pronounced hurricane. Anyway, so those are the 3 biggest cities in St. George. So for the permits of Washington County, or St. George, Washington County, Utah, for 2022, the total number was 1,023. Now, this is residential building permits, so it's not commercial or other types of structures. So I tried to make sure the numbers were as close to the same so we can kind of compare them. The total number of permits was 1,023, with March being the highest in 2022 at 139 permits. The lowest was September. Now, what that tells me is when you get a building permit, you're typically 4 to 6 months, maybe 9 months, depending on how big the home is. But generally, I would say the average is probably 5 to 6 months from permit to home being done. So as you see permits slow down, new inventory is also going to slow down as well. So when you start seeing that drop off, less homes will be available as inventory has gone up. I saw another data that showed we had 553 listings in all of Washington County in January of 2022. We ended the year at 1,715, which honestly is still low. The scary thing is it going from 500 to 1,700 in that time frame. Just how much it increased is what's making people nervous. But I also noticed that we sold 391 homes in January, where we still sold 309 in December. So even though the inventory went up, the number of homes stayed the same, roughly the same. It did drop, obviously. It always does a little bit in December, but it is something where it's not like all of a sudden the number of homes sold went to zero. And it is correcting. That's what we want to do. We don't want to have a seller's market just going absolutely nuts forever. This is part of that natural correction to move it back to more of a stable market where we have enough homes to supply the need without too many homes or not enough homes. So it is starting to kind of balance out a little bit. Let's go to the other permits. So Washington City is the next largest city in Washington County, Washington City. For 2022, there was a total of 685 building permits, residential building permits, with the high being September with 88. March was right behind it at 84. So typically you're going to see more permits pulled in the summer, spring months to be ready, or maybe even the year before. You're going to start seeing permits kind of pulled like that. But I thought that was interesting that their biggest month was actually September by a couple units. And that shows that they'll have a little more inventory possibly in Washington than they will in St. George in the next coming months, which Washington's been a big growth city in Washington County as well. The total permits for 2021 was 811. So again, it dropped, but it didn't drop as much as I thought. That's what's surprising. Yes, all the numbers dropped, but it's not like they went to zero or even half as much or even 3/4 as much. I mean, they really did drop, but not as much as I thought I would see. Next one's Hurricane City. This one had a total permits of 449 in 2022, with the highest month being February. Then 2021 was 639. Same thing, kind of a drop, but not nearly as much as I would have thought, just with everything that was going on last year. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. Warranty deeds. So this is another indication. It's not perfect, but this is another indication of how many homes are transferring ownership. Now, you could transfer ownership in Utah. There's no transfer taxes, so you can move it from your name to your LLC or to a kid or an estate or a trust. I mean, you can move things around to where it's not necessarily a true change of ownership like a sell. It's just changing the name on the deed. So it's a little askew. It's not like this is the total exact number, but I wanted to see the data of how much it changed from how many warranty deeds were recorded in Washington County. In 2022, there was 11,828 times that somebody recorded a deed changing it from their name to somebody else's name. And again, that could be themselves. It could be from their name to an LLC, their name to a trust, or trust to their name, or back and forth. I mean, so it's not a perfect number by any means, but I wanted to see the difference. In 2021, there was 17,221. So if you look at that percentage across the board, that's pretty much what we've seen as a drop, is that much. Maybe even a little more on the warranty deed side than we did on, say, solds and stuff like that. Last one I want to review with you real quick is the total number of defaults. This is notice of defaults, what we call NODs. This is the first step in foreclosure. Doesn't mean the home went into foreclosure. Sometimes they get resolved or sold or refinanced or something like that. So not every notice of default turns into a foreclosure. I would say it's maybe 30 to 40% of them maybe that actually go into foreclosure, maybe even less because values are up so much. But in 2022, we had 147 notice of defaults in all of Washington County, which is a pretty low number. 2021 was crazy low at 56 total notice of defaults. 2020 was 90. So you can see it kind of was 90, dropped to 56, then went up to 147. I know a lot of people are waiting for this big foreclosure wave. We're not seeing it. That's actually more normal numbers. People get notice of defaults for all kinds of reasons. Job layoff, maybe a death in the family, missed payments. There's lots of reasons why things go into default. And having a normal number, whatever that number is, isn't a bad thing because stuff happens. Just stuff happens, right? But it's lower than, it's not like a huge wave of foreclosures are coming. Not like we saw in 2008, where the numbers were like quadrupling every month. I mean, just going up like crazy because people couldn't sell. They were underwater. They did bad financing. That's just what happened in 2008. We're not seeing that in this time because most people either pay cash or had the cash to pay the extra, or a lot of them have equity and such a low payment on the loan, they're not just going to walk away. They still have equity. They can't replace that payment with something else. So you won't see a bunch of people just walking away from homes. There's always reasons for foreclosure. There's always reasons for notice of default, but it's not going to be a big wave of people just way underwater and can't refinance because their rate was at 6 and rates dropped. I mean, if you have a home right now, or if you owned a home in the last 2 years, you have the lowest possible housing payment you'll probably ever see on the home you're in, because you have your rate at 3%. Even if it's worth 600,000, you only owe 200,000. You won't be able to replace that home for that monthly payment. So I don't see this big wave of foreclosures. People can sell if they need to still, or just keeping it's a better plan than moving and replacing it with some higher rent payment or a higher mortgage payment. So I hope you found this information useful. I thought it was pretty fun digging up the data. Let me know what you think the trends are. Let me know what high points, low points you saw in 2022. But I love what I do for a living. I really love helping people buy homes, investments, first-time home buyers. This is just what I do for a living, and I really do enjoy it. Love the problem-solving aspect, but it is a crazy good time to buy a house. It really is. Prices have leveled a little bit, which is what we needed. Inventory's increased, which is what we needed. Yes, the borrowing money, the amount it costs to borrow the money has gone up, but it's leveled off the high. We've hit the high. We've come down a little bit. I think this is going to be what you're going to see most of this coming year, is a little bit of a wait and see, kind of just wait for new data to come out. A lot of the reasons why rates were so low have been removed from the market, but a lot of the risk and the fear of rates going up have also come down. So that's why I think you're seeing a little uptick in applications, because there's more to choose from. There's not this bidding war on every single house out there. You have more of a actual price and not having to overpay. And it's still cheaper to own a home than it is to rent, because of the interest rate, the tax deductibility, the appreciation, and just the pride of home ownership. You just got to buy a house. So if you have a resolution to get into a home this year, let's get you started. Let's get you on a plan to get you into buying a home, and just find out what you're qualified for. So check out my website at ryanbolton.com, and let's get started. Have a wonderful year. It's going to be a great year. You guys rock. Thanks for watching.